Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a great day because, well, you know what? We have a great show planned for you, where in the second part of the program, we will be doing computer and technology news, of course, and that is a segment of the show dedicated entirely to the latest news and interesting articles, things like that we feel you should definitely know about. And you know, it's a lot of work keeping up on the day to day, but hey, we think we give you a pretty good idea of what's happening out there. So, yep, that's in the second part of the show. In the first part of the program, we though have an interview. And I'm really looking forward to today's guest. They are a company known as Sealevel Systems, Inc. And we're going to be talking about some of their products, what they do, and, well, how they do it. So we're going to get to them in just a minute. But a couple of things to mention, including computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything and anything having to do with today's show. So be that a link to our guest website or any articles that we do, and you want to check them out on your own time, we, of course, link them there. Just anything and everything right there in one spot. So if your hands are tied, don't worry, we got you covered. While you're there, also be sure to check out the live video stream where you can watch Computer America and not just listen. And by the way, that is brought to you by OWC. And also be sure to check out the social media contest, which is brought to you by Logitech. We give away a prize every single Friday. And yes, we will be giving away a prize later on in the program. So yeah, you definitely want to stick around for that. So I think with all of that being said, why don't we go ahead and just bring on our guest. So, as I said, Sealevel Systems, Inc. And if you haven't heard of them before, well, you're going to hear all about them here today. And joining us to talk about the company is Mr. William Jefferson Baldwin. And Jeff is a hardware design engineer for, again, Sealevel Systems. So, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us on Computer America. How you doing?
Hey, great. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And of course, so I think for, a good place to start, as usual, is the beginning. Tell us a bit about the company and tell us about yourself. How did you find yourself working with Sealevel?
Yeah, so at Sealevel, we design and manufacture industrial computers and industrial computer communication components. And that's a pretty broad range of stuff, but it started back in 1986. Our founder and CEO, and he's still the CEO today, Tom O'Hanlon, he's an electrical engineer, and he designed a serial card that would allow you to add RS-485 serial ports into an IBM PC. Mm-hmm. And so that started the company, and then it just grew from there. A lot of other products similar to that, serial ports, asynchronous serial ports, synchronous serial ports, which are used heavily in industrial automation. Not something you find in the common household everyday life these days.
Right. And
as computers progressed through the years, we started with ISA-bus, which is a really old parallel expansion bus for computers. But then as they progressed, we went to PCI, PCI Express, USB, Ethernet. And so we made products, the company made products to fit all of these categories. So if you have a computer with any of these interfaces, you can add serial ports and connect to other computers and other equipment and control them and monitor them.
No, and I mean, the purpose for all of that, I guess, is because many things behind the scenes for these companies. It's not just like one laptop with a bunch of hard drives. Like it's literally a bunch of systems, and I guess being helping them all communicate with one another. That seems to be kind of the challenge that you take on. And I'm sorry because I've never really, worked in this field, but what's the difficult part in getting a bunch of different systems all communicating, working together on the same process I mean, what's the challenge that you help your customers kind of overcome?
Yeah, well, there is just a wide range of equipment with lots of different communication interfaces, so lots of different products to fit all those needs. And the environments that we typically go in, they're not, your typical household benign environments. They're really rough, wide temperature range, industrial applications, critical important applications. And so temperature range is always a challenge. So we design our products typically to be very wide temperature range. A lot of times there's just, vibration and other difficult parts about the environment. So we try to design all of our systems to be high reliability, withstand the harsh environments, and last a long time too. Because when companies put in large control systems and large equipment, they cost a lot of money. They don't replace them every couple of years. So when our equipment goes into those systems and helps them communicate, they need to last for sometimes decades.
Right. Give us some examples of where we might find some of your systems. Are we talking like, maybe in, again, just kind of poking through your website where, as we talk about this, are we talking like, I believe there's some people up on scaffolding for construction. Maybe that might be oil rigs and things like that. I mean, where would we find some of your products?
Yeah, all over the place. We don't have any specific field that we try to focus on. We are very broad, so that lots of companies can use our parts. I mean, they end up in factory automation, um, emergency communication systems. You did mention oil and gas, and that's a real rough environment. Mining vehicles, medical applications, typically applications where it's really important that things keep running properly and just don't fail.
So when you design these products, and I assume that you design a lot of these products in house, do you work with your customer and kind of whoever you're working with, or for a lot of your products, is there just kind of a best solution that can work across all these fields? Like, what kind of products do you primarily design in house?
Well, yeah, we design almost all of everything electrical we design, and we design our mechanical enclosures too. But so we have, I guess, two product categories, and there's a spectrum between them. We have our standard products, which we just design to fit the typical industrial computer applications. And then the whole other end of the spectrum is, I mean, some companies just come to us with completely fresh specifications, and they just have a list of things they need, a shape they need, all of the functionality they need. And sometimes we just start from scratch and design something from the ground up to meet their specifications. And then, like I said, there's a whole spectrum in between. So, for years we've been very accommodating to our customers. If there's something on our website they like, they just need a little bit tweak, or they need something added to it. We'll do a semi-custom design, maybe some different firmware, maybe some board modifications to make it fit their needs.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
another. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was about to switch over and talk about the R1 computer family, but please finish your thought.
Oh, just that. So another custom category that works really well for us is we do have a lot of existing standard I/O products that a lot of customers buy and use, and they'll be installing them in a computer system they already have. They're buying off the shelf from somewhere else, and those aren't always the most reliable systems. A lot of times they'll be larger, an ATX box system. Sometimes it's even Dell PCs, and so it adds a unreliability factor from that part of it. And so what we'll also do is take existing I/O designs that we've had for years that our customers need, and design an embedded computer, just adding all the functionality that they need out of our catalog, and design it from the ground up so it's a smaller form factor, fits in applications real well. We can make it more rugged and reliable, and available long term, longer than some box PCs might be that they might buy off the shelf from somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny that you're talking about, finally you threw out some names that I think a lot of consumers would kind of know with Dell. And then you immediately said that I guess consumer, stuff that you'd buy from Best Buy, I guess for the applications you're talking about, those would be, pretty unreliable compared to the technology that your customers are asking for, where a failure rate may be, you know, maybe a situation where they're probably never going to be able to get back to that, that piece of equipment without a lot of money and a lot of man hours spent. So it just sounds like if you put something from Sea Level in to monitor or transmit or do something on, wherever it may be, it seems like you need it to work for a long time with no hiccups. Is that about right? Like you're all about, reliability?
That is absolutely true, and a lot of our stuff goes into, I think you mentioned like remote locations, far out in the field. It might be hard to get a normal vehicle there, so if something goes down, it's a great cost to the customers to get repair technicians out there to service it. So it's just much better if it doesn't fail.
Right. Okay. And as I said, we have a question here about the R1 computer family. Explain a little bit about what the R1 computer family is and what it's mainly used for.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's a design we released last year, the original R1, and it was designed for a specific need. It needed to go on to oil fracking trucks that go out in the field under really rough conditions. So we designed it for the extreme wide temperature range and extremely high vibration resistance, and it's worked out well for that. And so then we released a new one lately, and actually before we talk about that, I'd like to step back to one of our existing product families
Sure.
that we've had around for quite some time, the CIO family. And so that's a little bit different. That falls into the IO family. So companies that need to control other processes out in the field, they can do that with these products. We have lots of different models of them with different IO mixes. And when I say IO, I mean inputs and outputs. So it could be digital inputs, digital outputs, relay outputs, analog inputs, analog outputs. So whatever kind of sensors or switches or motors they need to connect to in the field and either monitor and control them, they can build a control system with our CIO family to do that. However, the CIO family does need a computer connected to the system to, run it, communicate with everything,
Right.
do some logic, make decisions. So we've just released a new addition to the R1 family, and it's the R1 CIO server. And it's designed with a special communication and power interface to add on to the CIO family so that customers can buy that computer from us, and then they can buy their CIO mix and build their own custom control system.
Right. And I would assume that this takes a lot of the processes off the company, because I assume that many of the companies that you deal with, they aren't really in the business of making their own computers, but they need these systems that are going to be very specific to their industry. I mean, just because I'm kind of looking here, and if I have this right, the part R1 configurable Relio R1 industry computer. I mean, this thing, just looking at it, it's certainly different than a typical computer people would, kind of think of. It's very, very rugged looking, very compact. And I mean, $1,100, that's a pretty darn good computer. Talk about, kind of what customers, kind of like, because 1,100 base, I assume that customers would then, kind of tweak it to what they need and the price would go up. What is actually included with one of these computers?
Yeah, which the base model, it's a full computer, and then it's got the processor, RAM. I think in that price it does not include the solid state drive, so you add that on for your storage and add on OS. But after that, it's a computer ready to go. We've got serial ports on it and Ethernet and USB, so you can connect it to various equipment out there. We also have some expansion options. You can add a CAN card, that's controller area network, which is used heavily in automotive applications. And we have a Wi-Fi option too, so if you need to connect it to your Wi-Fi network to communicate with other and control other devices via Wi-Fi, that's an option too.
Right. Very. So pretty much everything that seems like you figured out a way to include all the modern conveniences into something like this. And again, very rugged looking. I assume fanless, to help with, make sure it doesn't get clogged up full of dust or dirt or what have you. I mean, it's very nice looking package that you have this thing in. And I guess you would pair this with, and by the way, when companies buy these computers from you, do they are they replacing everything at once, or how much backward compatibility or compatibility do you kind of work in with? Because I have worked in an industrial setting, and to say that Windows 95 is an obsolete system, just go into a manufacturing plant and hey, they're still running it. How much compatibility work do you kind of do with these systems?
We do try to provide plenty of backwards compatibility because, yeah, I mean, we see that every day. There are customers still running very old operating systems that may not be supported by Microsoft anymore, but that's what they have their software running on, and it would be a huge cost for them to rewrite a lot of their programs to use new hardware. So we do work very hard to try to provide that type of backward compatibility you're talking about.
Right. And again, kind of talking about the R1 system or the R1 line of family, I believe there's something new called the R1 Seal-O, and it's a server. So talk about this, and so far we've talked about computers, but servers are of course hugely important. Yeah, please.
Yeah, well, and that's what I mentioned a few minutes ago. That augments our CIO family line of products.
Oh, right.
The
So,
Stream IO control system, that's the computer that can just very naturally connect to it, and it can both power the modules and communicate with them. And this is a real cool. The CIO system is cool. It's very expandable. Customers can just buy one unit that has a bunch of relays, digital inputs, various I/O, and it'll have a communication interface. And again, with those, we provide lots of different communication interfaces. So we have serial port options, USB, Ethernet, and Wi-Fi. So pretty much however they need to connect to it to communicate with it, they can. And then there's an expansion port off the side of the unit, and they're all a standard form factor, and they can just daisy chain them together. So you have one main communication interface, and then an RJ45 cable goes from one unit to the next to the next to the next. And then you can communicate with all of them simultaneously through the main communication interface. And so it just looks like one big system through one communication port. And the CIO server helps just to add a natural computer to provide that computer functionality.
I see. I gotcha. So, and here's a point here. I mean, we have talked a lot, especially. I think it's a known entity by now, the Internet of Things, the idea that everything's connected to the internet, sensors, blah, blah, blah. Though you have a term here that I don't believe I've ever heard of, and that's so IoT, Internet of Things. If I have this right, IIoT. I've never heard of that. What is IIoT, and how is Sealevel, kind of working into that? Because, if consumers are expecting everything to start to communicate with one another, be that light bulbs, appliances, maybe their hot water heater, I mean, I can only assume that companies are expecting the same thing of their vital systems.
Yeah, and so IoT, the Internet of Things, and the IIoT is the Industrial Internet of Things. And it's similar. The IoT is just the broader picture, and every device is now getting on their washers, dryers, hot water heaters, a lot of kind of convenient stuff. But the IIoT is a little bit more focused on critical systems, things that you don't just want to know what's going on, you need to know what's going on. And and it's really also really important to capture the data over time of these systems that are being monitored, so you can see trends and predict. You could maybe predict failures ahead of time, and be ready to make repairs before they actually happen.
Right, and that's something that really kind of wasn't possible before. I guess maintenance and maintenance in IT was always a very reactionary thing. Being able to kind of diagnose it and see something coming down the road, that's that's going to save companies a lot of time and a lot of headache. Instead of trying to play catch up. So very important. And as we've been saying before, you build a lot in-house, you customize, you seem to be a one-stop shop for any of these companies that really need to, tweak until they look like completely different systems. Take us through the process of a company contacting Sealevel Systems and saying, "Hey, we have this process, and we need this kind of product, and it's really similar to what you have, but it's not quite." Kind of walk through that. Is that do they pair you up with someone such as yourself, a hardware design engineer? Walk us through how you customize for your customers.
Yeah, and it'll start typically with sales. Usually the customer will call a salesperson and tell them just what you said. We like this, but we need it a little bit different. And the salesman will do a little bit of work with them up front, figure out specs and what's really important to them. And then pretty shortly down the process, they'll usually get on a conference call with an engineer, and we'll talk through their needs, their application, and just go from there and start developing the specs for the custom product. And it typically has to do with a different shape. They might need it larger, might need connectors in different places to plug into where they have existing equipment. And we just, interactively work with them, develop that. Once we agree on some specs, then we go into the design phase and start designing it for them.
Very, very important. And we actually have this, one of these questions to kind of wrap up. But I will say that I think it's kind of the problem that, we were talking about how certain industries, they have pieces of equipment that are still running very old operating systems because everything's so unique and fine-tuned and, just kind of custom for that operating system. And I'm kind of curious if Sealevel has a different approach to this because from an outsider looking in, a lot of your systems, they're meant to be daisy chained, they're meant to be, kind of put together, combined. There's, even though I'm sure that other manufacturers out there can give you an all-in-one solution, everything's packaged together, everything's bolted together, and you're good to go. I feel like compartmentalizing or, making things, making each thing kind of removable and then, kind of swappable. I think that would save a lot of the upgrade, kind of woes that companies have. Where if there's a new Wi-Fi standard or if there's a new, cell or wireless spectrum that they need to be on, like, is it about making everything just kind of work when you send it out the door, or is it also about because things change in technology, things change very, very rapidly. Is there also an eye for making sure that you can, kind of upgrade it in the near future?
Oh, absolutely. And certainly, like you said, there are certain types of plug-in modules, and their interface may be standard over time, and those can be changed. That can be a good method. But another tactic that we've taken, and this is especially important with the computers, because processors, Intel and AMD and the big guys, they turn those things every 18 months. There's a new processor coming out, and having to react to that and redesign a full computer each time that happens is that would be a huge burden. So what we've done, we started this about I think 8 years ago with our computer families, is we use a computer on module tactic.
Mm-hmm.
So we will buy computer modules from a few good partners that we have, and they focus on laying down the processor, the RAM, and the high-speed interfaces onto an industry standard module that just has two connectors, and all the interfaces come out of there. And then we design a system around that with a carrier board. And so we spend most of our focus, and this is where most of our value comes from, is in the I/O that connects out into the field. And so we have most of our value in the carrier board in the system, and then when a processor does maybe go end of life and the new one is available and maybe customers want to upgrade for performance, we just have to swap out the computer on module, and the main value of the system, all of the I/O and the functionality that it has, can kind of go forward through time with much fewer changes.
Right, and tell us about your cloud solution because I see here Cloud IO, and obviously, the cloud has. I don't want to say taken by storm because that's a cloud pun. The cloud has become vital for a lot of processes in the consumer space, and I know that some industries are cautious about connecting things to the cloud. We look at what Atlanta's doing and having to deal with ransomware on their systems because they did connect things to the cloud. But at the same time, it can provide a lot of that maintenance monitoring, ease of use, that kind of thing. You have a cloud IO solution. What does that consist of, and how does that fit into selling just ordinary systems that are standalone?
Yep. So we do. We have our C-Connect product line, and there's one main standard product in that now, and it's kind of like a miniature CIO. It's got a various digital I/O interfaces and it's got a serial communication interface for temperature sensors, and so it's really focused on I/O monitoring and control. And so we've designed that, and it's cloud capable. It has Wi-Fi and cellular options, so depending on which kind of network you have, and if you're really remote, cellular is a good option. And then we've also developed our own cloud for it, and it's named C Cloud aptly.
Mm-hmm.
And so those two work together, and we provide the C Cloud as a service. And of course, security is on the front of everyone's minds. We've got built-in security. We've got AES 256 encryption. It's basically bank-level security because these devices are going to be out there in the field and connected to important processes. So, oh yeah, we take security very seriously with those.
Yeah, no, that's very important, and I'm also just kind of curious. Do you set clouds up for other because a cloud doesn't just have to be Amazon Web Services or something like that. Many places actually run their own little mini clouds that control entire systems. I mean, if a customer came to you and said that, hey, we want to set up our own cloud to monitor all of these, drilling stations or something, is this something that you could set up, or do you only offer the cloud service through your own service?
No, we do allow. We do have a service that customers can bring their own cloud.
Okay. All right. So no, and by the way, what the entire time we've been talking, we've been kind of poking through the website. You guys sell every possible part of the system. Looking at everything from power supplies to storage to cables. I mean, really, it's quite impressive that. Well, I mean, I take it back. It makes sense that you would be a one-stop shop, not just about not just about all these different buses and networks and cards, but hey, all the little gadgets and gizmos that would go with them. So, and Jeff, I'll be honest with you. I know that we kind of blew right through this, but it was very interesting. If people want to find out more about what Sealevel Systems does, and if they want to, hey, kind of poke around themselves, where's the best place to go?
You can go to our website, www.sealevel.com. You can contact us through there, browse the standard products, and if at any point you find you need something else, just call a salesman and talk about a custom solution.
All right, awesome. Oh, and actually, I did when I was reading about the company. I don't know if you wanted to mention anything about this, but we definitely like to highlight it when companies do make an effort. And I noticed that you guys are pretty big on having a green facility, caring about the environment, things like that. My major in school was environmental sciences, so I have a soft spot for this. Do you guys have any green initiatives, or is there any kind of standard that you kind of hold yourselves to concerning the environment?
Oh yeah, I mean, we are a very clean facility, and as materials and old parts need to be disposed, we make sure they're disposed of properly, and that everything doesn't just get thrown in the trash. I mean, we sort and dispose of and recycle our waste materials properly.
All right, no, that's great, and again, you could definitely check more of the stories out at the website, and again, sealevel.com. We have a link to it in the show notes at Computer America. So, Jeff, I will say thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a lot of fun, and everyone, one more time, hardware design engineer for Sealevel Systems Inc. Jeff, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Have a great one.
Bye.
All right, and there he goes. Folks, there we go. I am so happy to have Sealevel Systems on, and I'll be honest, I'm not an industrial computer kind of guy. Hopefully that made sense to you if you're in the field, of course, and I am glad that that we didn't have any questions, because it might have been over my head, but probably not over Jeff's. So with that behind us, and we have a couple of minutes just to get started with computer and technology news. And I think we're just going to try to jump in this as fast as possible before we head off to break. So, computer and technology news brought to you by OWC. Everyone, here we go. All right, so our first story, we have like 30 seconds, and we're just going to tease this, and then we're going to come back, but we have a lot of fun stories, and this one was actually from yesterday, but I felt it was so egregious that it could carry over, and it would still make you steaming mad the day after. So when we come back, we're going to talk about this article from Ars Technica, and Beth Mole talking about $25,000 diabetic alert dogs. So they're dogs that were trained to alert someone if they're about to suffer, a diabetic I don't want to say diabetic attack, but whatever. Were untrained, unhousebroken puppies, lawsuit says. So look at that face, that adorable face. Everyone, music means we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. And yeah, more Computer America right after this. Everyone, stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And yeah, we are about to do computer and technology news, and we have a story lined up. But before we do, we have a winner. So if you notice, a whole week long we've been promoting the of course Computer America giveaway, and that is brought to you by Logitech. They're a great friend of the show, make great products, and we are giving away a prize to one lucky listener. And all they had to do was enter through the contest. So this week's winner is, actually, we have a sound effect for this. We should probably use it. So this week's winner. There we go. That's better. That's much better. I like that. So this week's winner for the Logitech giveaway is the one, the only, Mr. Eric Hupp. There we go. Eric Hupp. So if you're listening, Eric, thank you so much for checking out Computer America. Thank you for entering. And all he had to do was to subscribe to the Computer America blog. And just by doing that, he is this week's winner. And we will reach out to him after the show. We already have his information. We'll connect him with Logitech. And Eric Hupp, who listens to us in Sacramento, California. Yeah, he's a winner. So congratulations. And if you want to be next week's Eric Hupp, well, all you have to do is, of course, hey, check out the show. Stay tuned and enter the contest. So there you have it. All right, now back to computer technology news. We were about to jump into our first story. Oh, and by the way, if you missed any of today's show, check out the podcast, whole show, rebroadcast, blah, blah, blah. Now, this story got me a little, little angry because obviously, huge dog lovers here at Computer America. We support Brother Wolf, which is a local shelter here. And, knowing that dogs are, in some cases, not just your best friends, but actually end up being very useful tools for people where, maybe seeing eye dog, or maybe they are, people who have panic attacks. They have dogs that are like emotional support, emotional therapy dogs. things like that. Yeah. And we also support Asheville Humane as well, the Humane Society, in a lot of places all over the country, doing great work. But they're great dogs. They go to great households, but in some cases, they're very important tools for people. And in this case, we have a situation where dogs were supposedly trained to detect and respond to potentially life-threatening blood sugar levels in people with diabetes. And in this case, these puppies were actually untrained, unhousebroken puppies with $25,000 price tags. That's right. So being said they're one, and being said that they're one thing and sold as another, not good. And that's according to a lawsuit filed this week by the Attorney General Mark Herring on behalf of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And according to the lawsuit, the nonprofit company Service Dogs by Warren Retrievers and its owner Charles Warren Jr. made extraordinary claims that they're diabetic alert dogs. The company and Warren said that the dogs were highly trained and their performance was backed by science. Good old science, backing anything you say it does. And, well, on the website that was selling the dogs, they advertised that the animals were being able to detect low and high blood sugar levels through scents in the skin and breath, retrieve needed food and medications such as insulin, seek help when required, and even dial 911. Yes, they take their little paws and they pull up the smartphone. They, unfortunately, no thumbprint, so they have to actually punch in your PIN code and, call 911. Actually, I kid. You don't even have to unlock it. You can just call 911. But, yeah, they said that they were 100% accurate and often alert as much as 20 to 45 minutes before a meter shows there's even a problem. And so for these remarkable dogs, yeah, $27,000 per dog. And the current cost is around $25,000, and the company encourages customers to fundraise to help pay for the animal. So, give to charity and they'll take it. So, it kind of sucks because we have seen, can you say rip off? Yeah, exactly. And also, can you say woof? Because there have been instances where dogs have alerted their owners that they're about to have a panic attack, they're about to have a seizure, they're about to have a diabetic episode. There are dogs that have done that, but to be able to train for that kind of thing, I don't think, or at least I don't recall ever there being a situation where you would ever claim that these dogs were 100% accurate. They would always be used in conjunction with other forms of identifying and making sure, hey, that what the dog is sensing is really on the up and up. So, it's saying that they're not going to buy it until they give dietary advice as well. I'm sure that the dietary advice would be give me your bacon because dogs prefer bacon. So that was the story. We're not going to go much further into it. The lawsuit is underway, but look at that face, golden retrievers, and yeah, they were untrained, unhousebroken puppies. Not what we want to see. So there you go. And why don't we go ahead and switch over to our next story that we have here. And all right, so Boston Dynamics, they're a really fun company. They're an awesome company that makes awesome robots. They do everything from making these weird human flipping robots to making this weird looking dog sci-fi killer robot. And for the longest time, we thought that their only purpose in life as a company was to make weird looking videos. And if you're watching the video portion, we're actually going to show one here. And we're going to show one here right about now. But it's, this is their Spot Mini robot. You may have seen it. The Spot Mini robot was, that was the one that kept slipping on the banana peel. If you've ever seen their robots, they get up off the floor themselves. They're very realistic and lifelike in their movements. They're very cool. But the news story about this is that after 26 years, That's a long time. They said that Boston Dynamics is finally getting ready to start selling some robots. So, yeah, hey, 3 decades. And founder Mark Raybert says that the company's dog-like Spot Mini robot is in pre-production and preparing for commercial availability in 2019. That's right. So the announcement came on stage at TechCrunch's TC Sessions, a robotics event today in UC Berkeley, where the Spot Mini robot is one that was motivated by thinking about what could go in an office in a space more accessible for business applications then the home eventually. So it's kind of dog looking like. It's about the size of a large printer. So I'm talking like the ones on wheels. But hey, if you are looking for a document runner, if you are looking for something that could maybe carry a lot of heavy objects, or hey, go investigate something with its cameras, this might be the one for you. It's it's a very cool looking robot, but again, the bigger part of the Spot Mini is the fact that, well, hey, it's finally going to be available for sale. So they said that the device weighs about 66 pounds and can operate for about 90 minutes on a charge. And hey, maybe just like an iBo, it can return back to the place for charging. So they said that the company says it has plans to, with contract manufacturers, to build the first 100 Spot Minis later this year for commercial purposes, with them starting to scale production with the goal of selling Spot Mini in 2019. They're not ready to talk about a price tag yet, but knowing that it took 26 years of research and development to get to this point, I'm betting the price tag wouldn't be less than a couple, if not thousands, a couple tens of thousands of dollars for this thing. It's, this is not exactly your next companion, but hey, that's cool. They finally were able to do it. So there's that one. Plenty of time, plenty more stories. And hey, I can think of no better way to carry out a Friday than to, do some fun news stories. Okay, so probably heard a lot about that one. Let's talk about this one. So Lyft. We talk a bunch about Uber, Lyft, and other ride-sharing companies. It's not the easiest field to be in, and we talk about situations where they pay their drivers a little bit too, or they pay their drivers not enough. They make them be contractors instead of actual employees. There's a lot of bad business practices that you can say, IBO extreme. There's a lot of bad business practices that you could say Lyft and Uber kind of operate under. Well, here's an article that they say Lyft faces another class action lawsuit over driver pay. And the problem is that a lot of people actually have tried being an Uber and a Lyft driver. They have tried to make some money on the side. I've heard people taking breaks from jobs and strictly being an Uber or a Lyft driver to make ends meet. So when they're saying that they are fudging the numbers when it comes to driver pay, that's a big problem because, hey, you're messing with people's take home. So Lyft isn't done grappling with lawsuits over driver pay, where a newly filed class action suit from California, they allege that Lyft played tricks with fare distribution to misrepresent the driver's share and unfairly pour their lost income back into the company. And by the way, Lyft, and they said that Villaseñor's attorney asserted that Lyft performed sleight of hand by setting fares relative to average taxi prices without letting them know what those taxi rates were, and that the drivers may have thought Lyft was taking 20% cut when it was actually taking a 43% cut. Very important. So there's that. The company dropped its commission approach on April 9th and raised fares precisely to avoid liability from lawsuits like this. But as we so often see, when they go back behind the scenes, they fiddle with the numbers and they say, this practice might get us in trouble, and then they go and fix it. Invariably, the next thing that happens is, oh wait, there was something that was wrong, we should sue over that. So even though you fix it, well, hey, you're kind of inviting yourself to a bit of a bit of a lawsuit. And they said that the suit would represent all U.S. drivers who signed up no later than April 8th, 2018, and would look for both restitutions for drivers as well as damages. And many California lawsuits take advantage of the state's Private Attorney General Act to reclaim lost wages, but that won't apply in this case. Lyft declined to comment to Engadget on the lawsuit. However, it comes mere days after a California court ruled that companies who classify workers as independent contractors have to prove that those workers are running their own businesses. And I think in that case, it was mainly Uber they were talking about, but with Uber, they couldn't prove that. A lot of people aren't running their own taxi business. They are simply working for Uber or Lyft or other ride-hailing services, and independent contractor really didn't apply in that situation. There's going to be a reckoning. There's going to be a reckoning with all these companies and whether or not an independent contractor really applies. And so, hey, if you're a Lyft driver and you were caught up in this, as is with most class action lawsuits, well, you may see a very marginal check coming your way. So congratulations. Definitely want to keep an eye out on that. So there's that one. And hey, it wouldn't be Friday without some uplifting news. And it wouldn't be uplifting news if we weren't talking about the one, the only, Mr. Elon Musk. Elon Musk, if you recall, after building spaceships, after making cars, after doing, after working with PayPal, after doing so many things, he decided to make the most boring company on earth. The Boring Company. And they don't just make flamethrowers that sell in limited quantities, but they actually bore under the earth for transportation purposes. So this is an article from Engadget, Miss Mariella Moon, saying that Elon Musk to offer free rides in his LA traffic dodging tunnel. That's right, you too can dodge traffic in Los Angeles, which, by the way, if I recall, was the, it had the worst traffic in the world, period. End of story. LA has the worst traffic anywhere. So, yeah, this is going to appeal to some people. So, they said that the Boring Company chief has shared a video of the tunnel on Instagram. And again, if you're watching the video portion, but if you're not, think of a tunnel. And there you go. You're welcome. So this is, So this is a video that he shared. It's a time lapse, and it shows them going through this tunnel that was cut away by their boring machine underneath the streets of Los Angeles. And that's a big, that's a very impressive feat, because obviously it's wired with electricity, lights, and all that kind of stuff, and a rail system to ferry passengers back and forth. But being able to do this not just underground, which is already super hard, but being able to do this under a city as well established as Los Angeles without affecting anything above it, super duper hard. So they said that the multi-company chief said that the tunnel is almost done, pending regulatory approval that will allow the Boring team to offer free rides to the public as soon as a few months from now. And while people will eventually have to pay to ride Boring's electric pods, he said that it will cost commuters even less than a bus ticket. And if true, the company's shuttles and tunnels could easily become the transportation method of choice. Again, kind of depending on how quickly it all happens, but it's super impressive. I think that the first one was supposed to go from LAX to a different part of downtown, and that was going to give people a way to get from the airport or to and from the airport without having to fight the highways and traffic around LAX to actually use the services. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure this thing's only like a quarter of a mile long, but it's a very vital and very heavily trafficked quarter mile. So it's going to see a lot of use. Musk has also reiterated that the company's previous statement that the tunnels will always prioritize shuttles carrying pedestrians and cyclists. Cars will still be able to use them, but they come second to mass transit needs. And in addition to sharing a video of the tunnel, Musk said on Twitter that the Boring Company has already started digging a tunnel between DC and New York. So, oh man, I am not very good with geography in those respects, but DC to New York, hey, that's another important one. And also, the company is hoping to start digging a route between LA and San Francisco next year, which will apparently be able to accommodate true Hyperloop with pressurized pods in near vacuum tunnels and faster than a jetliner. There's something. Why? And by the way, one of the listeners in the chat room mentioned that they were claustrophobic, but I read that as like Christopher-phobic, and I was wondering what they had against Christophers. But yeah, it's super impressive if they're able to get from New York to, because again, this tunnel, even though it's about to open and it's certainly able to, if nothing more than a proof of concept, it's great. But it's only a quarter of a mile. We're not talking 50 miles. We're not talking 60 miles. We're not talking, in this case, I think it's like 200 miles from LA to San Francisco. Again, not strong on the geography department. But yeah, those are much, much bigger tunnels. And I'm sure a lot of different problems can come into it. But luckily, I think California is known for its very stable earth. So yeah, hey, if you don't mind getting into a tunnel, there you go. But again, to be fair, these tunnels look very, very well built, and it would be surprising if the Boring Company turned out to be a big success, because I think Elon Musk already has a lot of companies that you could easily claim were very successful, and you'd never think that a tunnel digging company would be the next one. But there you go. All right, so there's that one, and let's see, we have time for just one or two more. All right, this one affected us, and we're not jaded, we're not bitter about it, but we're a little relieved that the YouTube CEO has addressed the concern. And there are a lot of content creators out there that had their videos demonetized. I would say that, for a while there last year, we were talking heavily about Russian hacking. We were talking about hacking on the regular, and it's something that we still continue to talk about today. But it got to the point where in YouTube's algorithm, because they assumed that people were looking up how to hack and how to compromise different people, and they thought it was a devious kind of activity, where we were talking about generally the news, YouTube was demonetizing even our videos on the regular just because we were discussing current events. So they were very aggressive in their demonetization of videos. And the CEO has finally addressed it and talking about going forward. So let's get through this real quick, saying that the YouTube CEO, Susan Wojcicki, I am sure I butchered that horribly, announced in a blog post today that YouTube will be launching a pilot program with a small group of users in an attempt to address its creators' continued concerns regarding demonetization and other recent largely unpopular changes to the YouTube Partner Program. And they said that she voiced the concern, saying that the last 2 weeks have been challenging and that YouTube was committed to communicate more with all of you. And they did point out that the people who were already doing pretty well on YouTube, those who were making 5 to 6 figures, their channels saw growth of 35 to 40%. So, that is that's something that they're going to continue to push. The fact that people who do well on YouTube already will continue to do well on YouTube. So trying to assuage their current, their current user base. But they said that for smaller YouTube individuals, because they raised the bar for being able to actually monetize your videos, they raised the requirements. So a lot of people got pushed out. And then on top of that, again, a lot of demonetization. It's just harder to even earn a living if you're making certain kinds of videos. So the post, which articulates an update on YouTube's 2018 priorities, says that the platform wants to provide more opportunities for creators to engage with fans and address abuse, claiming that YouTube is an incredible force for good, particularly when it comes to education, which can be true. But at the same time, YouTube doesn't seem to really understand its user base, because they made some changes. It was last year or the year before, where simple how-to videos, like YouTube was really pushing the idea of how many minutes you spend watching YouTube, and they were actually steering people away from these very short form how-to videos for education purposes, and more towards content that would keep you sitting, engaged, and waiting. And hey, when you're trying to learn how to do something really quick, you don't want to sit through a 6-minute video. You want a 45-second video to tell you how it's done. But again, YouTube was prioritizing longer versus shorter. Either way, they announced the imminent launch of a YouTube pilot program meant to address the complaints about the pesky upload algorithm, which users say has been incorrectly demonetizing ad-friendly videos. And it's launching with a small set of creators to test a new video upload flow that will ask creators to provide specific information about what's in their video as it relates to our advertising-friendly guidelines. So either way, not all YouTube creators were receptive to this response to many of their perennial concerns. Very corporate response, I will say, from YouTube, where they say, we understand you're upset. We're doing well, and look at how well everything is happening over here. Ignore the fire over there, but look at all the great stuff over here. Very corporate-like response, and I don't think it really addressed a lot of the problems. But hey, any kind of communication is better than no communication, even if it's a bit misguided. So there you go. That may be the last story we have time enough to kind of get through all the way. Let's see. All right. So some of the stories that we're not going to be able to get to include the fact that the FCC has fined a robocall spammer. Yes, those annoying robocalls. $120 million for illegal spoofing. That's been in the news lately. Let's see. Cops can find the location of any phone in the country within seconds, and a senator wants to know why law enforcement would need that kind of capability. And I think the answer is pretty obvious, because they can. Let's see. We weren't able to get to that one, or the fact that a murder case in China had made the biggest ride-sharing app company halt their services while they try to figure out this murder case. So, you think things are pretty bad with Uber and Lyft, stealing money from their user base. Well, yeah, murder in China. But either way, we are just about done here for today. That's what the music means, and I want to say thank you so much to our guest, Sealevel Systems Inc., for coming on the show, talking about their products. A lot of fun, and I want to thank all of you out there for tuning into Computer America. And be sure to catch us next week, Monday through Friday, as we continue on and do another 5 weeks of shows. And we have some great guests coming up, so you definitely want to stay tuned. And the only place to catch all those is, of course, here at Computer America. And by the way, congratulations to our winner again, Mr. Eric Hupp, who listens to us in Sacramento, California. And hey, if you want to be next week's Eric, all you have to do is enter to win at computeramerica.com. So, until next time, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Thank you, Logitech, for doing the contest. Thank you, OWC, for sponsoring Computer America. And thank all of you out there for listening and watching the program. And until next time, have a great day. Bye-bye.